Okay. Yeah. Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, if I could, just to Eric's last point, I guess I'd just be curious. We'll certainly see in written comments, but to Dr. Goodwin's response about the introduction and inclusion of social science as a part of the Delta Science Plan. And I'll just say, I know going back a few years ago when we were looking at contracts on some of the science and looking at some of the background of folks, with the wide breadth of understanding and certainly research and expertise capabilities, it seems to me that Eric makes a very, very good point. And I would, go as far as that I would concur. But I'm curious, Peter, what your reaction to that is, and maybe you'll bring us more. But again, I'd like to just briefly hear what you...
Well, just very quickly, I certainly agree with Mr. Ringelberg's comment. If you look at much of the large-scale science that is going on in relation to environmental management, social sciences is the increasing trend. And so, you as we know very well, you can have the best science, but if it's not being used in the policy arena, or you're not also doing that science to understand the consequences of those actions, and that's the social sciences. So I would agree with that totally. It was also highlighted at the meeting up in Puget Sound, where they had 6 of the big ecosystem management in the country together, and everybody said the same thing. So, just in summary, I couldn't agree more with that comment.
Could I just follow on, Mr. Chair? Just so will you be able to incorporate that as a part of the backdrop then for how the independent science and the science plan will then review and certainly take into account in all the various things that are actionable in the future? So will you be able to come back to us in September with...
Yeah, we'll certainly note that comment, and I would just like to say it certainly wasn't our intent to exclude social science. Right. I think we were just bundling all of that in under science. So no, we'll can come back in September with...
Okay, and again, whether you agree or disagree, but again, I'd like to see some conversation about that, or if it maybe call it out then for the benefit certainly of those who have an interest in it. But I think if it's woven into here, or how you're going to take those things into account in addition to everything else that's in here. So okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I would just also add that the successor from NCES, which is the NSF-funded Center for Ecological Data, was set up specifically to link the social sciences with ecology. It's out of the University of Maryland. And so if we have that here, we're just very consistent with the national trend.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, members, if you would now please turn to agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 9, levy investment strategy.
Mr. Chairman, let me give you an update on that one. When we set up agenda item number 9, we had some different circumstances that have undergone some rapid change this week. So that agenda item is going to be removed. I'm just going to give you an update on where we are with the levy assessment right now.
Let's get the update then.
Well, what necessitated this situation in the first place was, as you know, and the council has been kept informed on this over the past months, but starting as far back as November, we've been working on a partnership agreement with the Department of Water Resources to do the levy assessment. There was a lot of work finding out what data was available, building a scope of work, building a contract ultimately, and we hit a stalemate a couple of weeks ago over the peer review process. That peer review requirement, if it had gone through, would have necessitated us to basically not follow through with the contract, which would have caused significant repercussions, I think, in our schedule, which is why it was on the agenda. You needed to be notified of that. Since then, what we have done is worked out a solution with the department, and it's a mutually agreeable one where basically we will still have a peer review, but it is confined to the processes and procedures used to develop the information, and then the policy portion of utilizing that data is not subject to the peer review, which would have been our intent, I think, all along anyway. So what we will do then is continue on awarding the contract ultimately, and beginning that work. And we can give you an update on that in
But here,
September.
let me just give you a fast reaction. The Delta plan that we adopted unanimously said we will adopt our recommendations for state investment strategy by January 1st, 2015. The plan that was in here wouldn't even come close to allowing us to do it. So when you come back next month, I want to see a timeline that gets us 1, 2, or 3 staff recommended versions of investment strategy built into it. Because otherwise, it just drags on to we're going to accumulate endless information, and it's depending on other agencies' cooperation, and everything always slows down. Nothing ever gets done on time. But an investment strategy is not a legally binding thing. It's a recommendation to the legislature and to the governor. And that is the heart and soul. We would like it to be as comprehensive as we could make it, but the legislature didn't ask us to answer each and every detailed question. We tried to impose a structure on our own, but I want to see a plan that guarantees that the work will be done to get us an investment strategy adopted by the council on or before January 1st, 2015. If we don't have that, and we can't get it, and the staff thinks we can't get it, just tell us.
I'll have that for you on our September meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
I
Mr.
have a
McToley.
question, maybe just in a little different vein. One of the things, and I didn't know how much of a detailed presentation we're going to get today, and it sounds like that's going to be put over because of the work you reported on, Chris. I guess I'm curious is where, if any, is there an expectation that the Delta Protection Commission is going to be involved in any of the conversations? I know that, and it was referenced earlier, the Economic Sustainability Plan, but certainly the focus with the primary zone of Delta, we recognize levy investment, certainly risk management, and a whole host of things as being very, very critical to long-term viability of certainly protecting the Delta and its various assets, natural and otherwise. And so I'm curious, is there anything between DWR and certainly the Stewardship Council considerations here, and you've got other entities obviously that are engaged in flood protection and other aspects of levy prioritization to engage or involve either the commission and or its staff in this work? Because I think that's a critical piece, and I think absent that, you may be coming up a bit short if you're trying to shoot for the date that the chairs pointed out without that engagement and involvement. So
Let me